Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 3 of The Voice Only I Hear. So today we're doing something a little bit different. As you can see, the text is on the screen, and we're about ready to go. But I just very quickly need to explain Kay, and this episode is hopefully going to do that, and it's hopefully going to help to. I don't know whether it's to draw the line between what's real and what isn't, or blur the lines between what's real and what isn't. I guess blur the lines, really. So, Kay, as I think I mentioned in the last episode, she's not real. She lives inside James's head, hence the title, "The Voice Only I Hear." But she plays a very pivotal role in the story, both on her in her own right, and also with James as well. So as I say, without further ado, let's crack into it, and we'll see what goes on. So as always, I don't normally work in this size text, but I've sort of blown it up so that you guys can see the words as well. So if you want to, you can mute me, but I will perhaps interject in some some places and try and explain what's going on here. So yeah, so the voice only I hear, and this is Kay. Coming up with a character like Kay isn't simple. It's complicated and intimate. I needed someone who could complement James, not just echo him, but balance him. She had to have her own voice, her own memories, her own silences, and from the beginning I felt she had always been there, a constant, not always present, but never truly gone. She needed to feel real while still being clearly not real, someone only James could hear, someone only he could love. I felt the setting too had to matter. Great Yarmouth, my own place of stillness, became her shoreline. I went there not long ago, so it's about a couple of weeks ago that I went there. About a month probably actually, when I started to. So this idea, the voice only I hear, had been sort of knocking around my head for a while, and I could never quite get anything to fit it. And then slowly but surely, I don't know. I guess it started to just come in, and pieces started to fit, and so I needed to go there because, as I said in the last episode, I went there. Uh, I've been there twice now since I've had this idea. Once in the winter, um, and uh, and in the winter because I had this scene in my head where the two of them met on a bench in Great Yarmouth, and it's kind of the start of the story. It's kind of where the story picks up and where we're interested in the story, or the point we become interested in the story. So I went there not long ago, sat by the sea and watched the wind smooth the sand. I thought about the boy I used to be, alone, quiet, watching my brothers play from the sidelines. So this now, as I say, is about a month ago. So obviously the weather's a lot different, and the sights, sounds, and smells are a lot different. I started to imagine a voice beside him, a girl, not invented, not imagined, but revealed. That's when Kay was born. So let me take you to the moment they met, and later to the moment she became real. So this, where they met, is what I wrote on the beach. So I'm sat on the beach. Uh, I started started off up sort of the top of the beach, if you like, near the promenade, and then eventually, I don't know, I just kind of was playing this out in my head, and then like sort of a younger me, I then sort of drifted off to the sea, and then sort of played this out in my head. And while I played it out, obviously I wrote it all down, and now I've sort of tidied it up and sort of made it, if you like, a little story within its own right, but it obviously doesn't need to be in the main story. A summer holiday. School had ended, but the isolation hadn't. It had just followed me here. Mum and Dad were playing with my older brothers. I sat on the sand, still, quiet, buried in sun cream like it was a second skin. dragging a yellow plastic rake back and forth through the grains. Boredom clung like a hangover, loneliness like punishment, all while their laughter echoed nearby, laughter I wasn't part of. I couldn't have felt more alone. "Mum, can I walk down to the sea?" "Make sure you stay where I can see you, and don't go in the water." Her voice was distant, busy playing, not parenting. I dropped the rake where it landed and wandered down to the tide line, just far enough for her to think she still had eyes on me. The wet sand cooled my legs through my shorts. It clung to me like pastry dusted in sugar. Then, "Hello?" The voice came out of nowhere, soft like rain, warm like the sun. I looked around. No one. But the voice didn't feel imagined. It was next to me, real and present, but somehow inside me too. "Cat got your tongue?" Playful now, and then she was there. A girl, maybe my age, sitting beside me on the sand. Brown hair down to her shoulder blades, a blue striped t-shirt, yellow shorts, bare feet, and calm. I wasn't scared. Not yet. She looked real, but felt older, not in age, but in knowing. "Where did you come from?" I asked. She smiled. "I've always been here. You just couldn't see me till now." There was a silence, like she was giving my brain time to catch up. I watched the tide, she watched me. "Who are you?" I said finally. "The best friend you never had." I didn't question it. Children don't need proof. No one told me to be suspicious. I just accepted it. I was glad for it. Time passed, I don't know how long. Then I asked, "What's your name?" She didn't hesitate. "Kay," she said. "James, my name is Kay." "How do you know mine?" "I know everything about you. That's why I chose you." "Chose me?" "I need a friend. You need a friend. We fit like pieces of a puzzle. That's all that matters." She looked towards the sea. "No one else can see me. No one else hears me. Just you." I dragged my fingers through the wet sand, feeling the little pebbles bump and flick beneath my fingers, also unseen, but always there. That was the beginning. Not a ghost, not a guardian, just a girl, alone like me, but mine alone. So as I say, that's a month ago. I'm sitting on the beach, and that's kind of what I'm imagining. And so I have, I don't know whether, I don't know whether other people have it. Obviously, I can't speak for anyone else, but I have such a vivid imagination that when I kind of sort of sit and just go blank, it's like the world turns into this mega canvas, and I can start to see things that are not there. And I've always been able to do this. Um, I released a short story about a week ago now on my other channel, which is my farming sim channel, which is obviously all about farming and farming simulator and stuff like that. Go check it out. It's Mr. Jimmy D. It's a farm sim life for me if you want to check it out. And I released a short story on there because one or two of like the people on that channel that have been following me for quite a while sort of said, "Oh, it'd be nice to hear a short, it'd be nice to hear one of your stories." Um, and I wrote a story. I sort of did a video on a story that I did when I was 14. A story that's just recently been published, and it's only a short story, and it's only been published online, so there's no book or anything like that. I'm not that good, not yet, anyway. But yeah, so it went out on there, and I've been sort of kind of got chatting with a young lady that commented on my video, and I said to her, ever since I was about 10 or 11, I've always been able to see things that aren't there. I've always been able to see. It's a bit like what I was saying, sort of in the first two videos. Anyone can write a story, uh, but very few people, I think, see stories in things, and that's one thing that I kind of am able to do. So that yellow rake, just over from where I was sat, just sat quietly with sort of my notebook and my pen. Uh, a young boy was sort of sat just aside of his parents, and he was dragging this yellow sand rake through the sand, and it was that yellow rake that then started the process of me writing that. Um, it was kind of like the little sort of nudge that I needed to get me going. So part of that, what I've written, is true. In the sense that that's how it was like for me as a child. I've got a serious heart condition, as I've said before, and sort of an overprotective mother that wouldn't let me join in, that wouldn't let me sort of do things, and so I did spend a lot of days in summer holidays, and on summer holidays where, yes, I was with the family, but I was kind of sat on the sidelines, and never quite, even though I was present and I was there, I never quite felt a part of it. But anyway, we'll continue. So that's the idea, the conception, Kay's origin. But the harder part, the real challenge, wasn't just creating her, it was making her believable. I needed the reader to feel like I needed the reader to feel her like James does, to believe her presence in the room, to feel her warmth in the cold, hear her voice between the breaths, see her move at the edge of the frame, but still know she's not real. And that's a tightrope, because if you lean too far into physicality, she becomes a person, and that breaks the spell. But if you keep her too ghost-like, too abstract, you lose the intimacy. The connection falls apart. So I spent the week, this last week, writing and rewriting a scene, stripping it back, layering it again, looking for that space where presence and absence overlap. And I think I finally found it. This next moment, what you're about to see, is where everything clicks for me, where Kay becomes tangible but untouchable, where the dialogue reads like someone you know, but her silences remind you she exists only in James. This is the one I keep coming back to, because when I read it through, I don't just see her, I feel her, and I hope when you read this with me, you do too. So, as I say, I had this, when I came up with the idea, I had this scene in my head for the opening of the book. And, this is like a sort of, if you like, first draft. I'd written that, as I say, at the seaside, the first bit that we've just read. And I felt like I'd kind of got the line right between making her so that we can all see her, but making it clear that, no one in the book can see her, only James can see and hear her. But as the reader, you need to kind of be able to see her too, because obviously I need you. Well, I hope that you'll gain empathy with her, and that you'll um, begin to fight her battle with her, and so I need to make her clear and visible, but at the same time, you kind of have to have in the back of your mind, she isn't actually real. She's just a voice in James's head. Now, that does get explained more in the book. I'm not going to do it here today, other than to say that, um, I've written this first scene, if you like. As I say, it's a rough draft. It isn't going to be final. It isn't, going to be what gets eventually submitted to a publisher. It's just a rough draft. It's just so I can kind of set the tone for the rest of the sort of book and the story. And her backstory does begin to slowly come in, and through sort of flashbacks and memories and different things like that, we begin to learn who she was when she was alive, and slowly but surely it begins to unravel why she was killed, who killed her, and how that sort of ties in with James's reality. And as I say at the end, it forces them, when they find out who did it, it forces them to face truths that they don't really want to face. And and that's kind of what it is. So I'm now going to obviously read the next bit, and then, as I say, this is a rough draft of the opening scene to the book that won't make the final cut. It'll be rewritten and probably rewritten about another 10 times to get it absolutely right. But I felt it was good enough to put in the video, and I also felt that it was good enough to set the scene so that you guys can kind of sort of see where the story's going. So I was actually asked by someone who had seen episode 1 and had liked it. They sort of said to me, what kind of genre is this going to be? Is it going to be fantasy, whatever? So this is psychological thriller, because clearly James has psychological issues, for the way that he goes about what he goes about, and a bit like believing a voice in his head. Although she is a little bit more than that, but when you strip it right down, that's all she is. Uh, and uh, and so yeah, this comes under psychological thriller, and hopefully I can do it justice. But anyway, let's crack on with the next bit. James walked headlong into the bitter northeast wind, pulling his coat tighter until the collar pressed against the bottom of his nose. He shoved his hands into his pockets, fingers brushing against an old USB cable, forgotten, its purpose lost to time, a relic from last winter, though he couldn't remember what it had ever belonged to. He made his way towards the seafront at Great Yarmouth, the wind biting at his skin like sharp teeth. The air was thick with salt, the scent of damp wood and fried food lingering from shuttered stalls. The gulls cried overhead, piercing, restless, their voices caught in the rushing tide. As he passed the Sea Life Centre, a memory flickered, brief, fleeting. His first date with Mara. It had been early spring, just cold enough that she had clung to his arm, laughing at the way he stubbornly refused to admit he was shivering. She had chosen this place. He had gone along with it, wanting to impress her, wanting to be the kind of person who found joy in simple things. They had wandered the exhibits, their footsteps echoing against polished floors, the hum of aquarium pumps whispering beneath the murmur of voices. He remembered the way the blue light caught in her hair, the way she pressed her palm against the glass, mesmerized by the slow glide of a stingray just beneath her fingers. "You think it knows we're here?" she had asked, not really expecting an answer. He shrugged, watching the way she smiled at the smallest things, the way she had been so effortlessly present. She had wanted fish and chips afterwards. She tugged him toward the promenade, teasing him for being too polite to steal a chip off her plate. It had been easy, then, simple. But things that start simple rarely stay that way. Now, the building stood unchanged, but everything else had shifted. He barely noticed the details of it now. Just a landmark in his walk, just another place filled with the ghosts from his past. And he didn't stop. James sat on the warm bench, the cold pressing through his coat, the wood familiar beneath his fingers. The sea moved in restless waves before him, whispering against the shore, and above, the sky thick and grey and waiting. The crash of the waves filled the silence, each swell pounding against the shore like a heartbeat, steady, relentless. The air carried the scent of brine, thick and sharp, mingling with damp earth beneath his feet. He glanced left, then right. No one. Just him. The gulls wheeled overhead, their cries fractured by the wind, scattering across the empty promenade. Farther down the beach, the tide dragged pebbles back into the sea with a quiet, rhythmic hiss. Not for long. Kay would be here soon, and when she arrived, the silence would no longer be just his. "Excuse me, I'm looking for a very handsome man. Goes by the name of James?" Her voice was playful, teasing, cutting through the cold with a warmth only she could bring. Even as the wind tangled her black hair into a wild mess, her smile remained broad, unwavering. Without hesitation, she slid onto the bench beside him, linked her arm through his, and tucked herself close. I wondered if he'd actually come. James spoke, voice muffled against the wind as he wrestled with his collar, trying to push it down enough to be heard. She sat beside him, close enough that he could feel the warmth she wasn't truly giving off. Her presence was effortless, undeniable, like the way air simply exists around you. You don't question it, you just breathe. "You look tired," she said, her voice soft, teasing as if she was about to laugh, but never quite did. James exhaled, shaking his head. "I always look tired." She hummed, tilting her head. No, not always." Then, with a playful glint in her eyes, she teased, "As if I'd missed the chance to be with you." Her voice was light despite the cold, carrying that familiar warmth he had come to rely on. Their eyes met, silent, understanding, lingering between them. James leaned in, closing the space between them, and Kay met him halfway. Their lips pressed together, warm against the sting of the wind. James let himself sink into it, let himself believe, just for now, that she existed in the space between reality and longing, that she was truly here. Then the tide pulled back, the gulls cried, the wind shifted, and the kiss was over. James sat looking at her, fingers still curled around nothing, lips tingling with the ghost of a kiss that had never truly happened. So that's kind of, as I say, the uh, if you like, the opening scene where we as the reader become sort of almost invested in James and Kay, and I guess kind of want to see uh, how, sort of in a way James copes in the real world with this sort of voice that lives with him and is ever present and in his everyday. And it's a voice that, of course, you have to remember has been there since he was a child. So what's important sort of in the present day stuff is to not make her feel new, not make her feel like she's just turned up. It's to make her feel like she's always been there. And as a writer, I've never written a character that isn't sort of kind of that is a character in the book, but is not a real living thing. And the way that you try and describe her, the way you try and describe, things that she does, things that goes on around her is very different. And as I say, I've kind of sort of I mean, that's like literally the opening, sort of paragraph, really, or sort of two paragraphs to the chapter. There's a lot more in that chapter that happens. There's a lot more that goes on between them. On the bench that day. It's that day really on the bench when James kind of confesses all about Mara to her, and Kay kind of sort of is pleased in a way because she's kind of getting her James back. Because when he's with someone in the real world, so like he's currently in a relationship with Mara, then Kay is quite a sort of almost distant voice. Although he has sort of a place where he goes, where he sees her, where he can talk to her, where she can be really sort of present with him. But for the rest of the time, obviously, she's in the background because James is in the real world, and he can't sort of portray this relationship that he has with this voice in his head to the real world. Otherwise, he's going to get locked up. People are going to think he's nuts. So that's kind of the balance that needs to be sort of pulled, where she's always been there, but she's not quite there yet. But on this particular day, on the seaside, with this kiss, with everything that kind of happens, we begin to see that, or it gets James sort of says, "I'm leaving Mara," and she's like, "Oh, who you got this time lined up?" And he sort of looks nothing in the eye, that sat next to him, because remember, next to him the bench is empty, but he looks at her and says, "Well, you actually." And he sort of declares that he wants to be with her, that somehow he's going to try and live his life with uh merging her within the real world, but keeping her sort of distant enough that, as I say, people don't think he's nuts, because remember, no one else can see it, no one else can hear what she says, only he can. And so you know, he wants her in his world, but there has to be that distance, and there will always be that distance, even between those two, because obviously she's not real. And as I said, this is a sort of psychological thriller. This is about, in a way, about mental illness. It's about control. So we talked last week about how Mara reacts with seeing her ex with. We didn't really sort of get to see her and James together as such, but the way she controls and manipulates James into being exactly what she wants, rather than, what may he want, or, what type of, relationship she wants and she expects from him, where, there isn't no intimacy, there isn't no physicality between the two of them. And that's the one thing that James really craves. It's almost like he's been sort of invisible all his life to his parents, to his brothers when they're playing on the beach, and he's kind of sat on the, sort of the sidelines. And then in this relationship, he kind of feels again that he's on the sidelines, that she has him there, but she has him sort of far enough away that he's not quite a part of it. And I think that's why in the end, later on in this scene, where he then sort of decides, actually, I kind of want to be with Kay, because she sees me, she hears me, she lets me be, she gives me everything that a human has never given me, or a real person has never given me. And so, when he sort of, makes the declaration, I want it to be me and you, and I want to somehow integrate you into the real world, that's kind of what happens. And you sort of go through their story, but obviously they're together now, and he's kind of seeing her all the time, and it turns out for him, really, that he never really knew anything about her, that she starts to reveal the past, that she starts to take him places that prove she was real once, and proves that, that once, she walked the same earth as he did, and she breathed the same, oxygen that he did. It's just that she was killed. She was killed because of something she found out that she didn't realize she'd sort of found out and witnessed. And as I say, as they begin to unravel Kay's story, that's when they start to fight. But anyway, I've probably given you way too much of an exclusive, so I'm going to sign the video off here, and thank you all ever so much for watching and listening. There is just one little bit that I've got to add at the end, and then, as I say, we are going to then end the video here. It's not a long bit at all, this bit. So as I say, as I mentioned before, I really hope this captures the delicate line between presence and absence. Someone who isn't really there, but somehow is. The dynamic between James and Kay is the heart of this story. She's not a gimmick, but the driving force of the story. The dynamic is what makes the fight they have to survive all the more plausible. As their relationship deepens, she begins to reveal parts of her past, and slowly her history and their future begin to collide, forcing both of them to comfort truths neither of them is fully ready for. So as I say, thanks for joining me for episode 3. I really hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. It genuinely helps more than you'd think. Next time I'll be meeting the last of the main characters, Dan, and after that the story begins for real. So yeah, as I say, and I, I I wasn't meant to read that very last bit. That was just there as a reminder to me to say the ending, because I do have that scripted, because I always forget. I always end the video and then it's like I'm watching the video back and it's like, oh bugger, I didn't put the end in. So there you go, that you kind of got a behind the scenes peek preview there, haven't you, of kind of what I put in. Anyway, as I say, next time we'll be meeting the last of our main characters, which is Dan. Dan's the detective. Dan was once married to Mara. He was the guy in the supermarket that she had the scene with, and then after that, um, the story begins. Now, what I might do is I might then take you to Yarmouth, and I'll in the video I will uh, that we meet kind of Danning, or maybe the video after, where we're going to sort of set the story, the bench, the scene, and everything, the Sea Life Centre, and I'll do a video, and we'll go round and I'll show you it all, and then you'll kind of begin to visually be able to sort of picture what I'm picturing, because most of the story that I'm about to start writing is going to be written in Great Yarmouth. It's gonna, it's gonna be a bit of a logistical nightmare, in terms of, I live, nearly 3 hours away from Great Yarmouth, so I'm not going to be able to go there every day, because the diesel bill would be extortionate. But I am going to try and get there at least twice a week, and maybe even if I can find somewhere sort of cheap enough, stay overnight so that I don't have to travel back and then travel back again. But what will tend, I think, what probably will naturally happen is that it will end up being like sort of once, maybe twice a month, that I end up going there, because obviously, although I know, what sort of it all looks like I say, that place has relevance for me, personally, and most of my childhood is there, and all of my sort of really fond memories are there, and of course, the next thing is that, but I need you to kind of walk the path that the character walks that day. But anyway, that really is the end. So thanks ever so much for watching. Like I say, I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It generally helps more than you think. And as a small content creator, I really mean that. Every time I get a comment, every time I get a thumbs up, every time I get a subscriber, it helps the algorithm in YouTube to just push me to another few people. And if those people are kind enough to do those things, then it pushes me to a few more. This is uh, this is not a channel that's looking for fame and fortune. I've created this channel because I want people to share with me the process that I go through writing, sort of stories and books. And this isn't going to be the only one. If this is, it by some miracle published, we'll keep doing it. And the next one, I've already kind of got the next idea. Well, I've got two ideas that are after this floating around. One's a continuation, the other one's goes off in a completely different direction. And so there's sort of lots more to come. This isn't just going to be this story and then we're finished. But anyway, thanks ever so much for watching, and I'll see you again next time. Bye for now.